Tragic gaming news today. Stalker cosplayers are killed after Russia allegedly mistakes them for Ukraine spies. So if you're unfamiliar with Stalker, it is an FPS game set over in the Ukraine area. So let's talk about, see what happened here and see what everybody's saying there. So they were reportedly killed in southwest Russia, and the state mistook them for Ukrainian spies. Now this drew the attention of the FSB, which stands for Federal Security Service, which is what their service is. And they had possessed uniforms marked with a green wolf head insignia. Then it was supposed to be associated with the Ukrainian party. However, these were also from the costumes in the game. So they saw something and they thought it meant something political, but it was actually from the game itself. Now, why were they there? What were they doing? Let's try to find out what happened here and how it relates to all gaming. Now, there's currently some war situation going on, not to get too much into that side of things, but some industries in the gaming world are affected, like Ubisoft, Gameloft, Crytek. They operate in the region. There have been some delays and problems that have come from that. Now, these 3 cosplayers were killed in southwest Russia, about 155 miles from the Ukraine border. So they were in the country. They were quite a ways away from Ukraine. They were in there. And I find some things that some of the commenters say very interesting. And like I said, we'll get to that part here in just a second. Now, the allegations dovetailed with a Wednesday report from state-owned Russia 1, and they had basically said during the conference that they had thwarted a sabotage operation by SBU, which is Ukraine's state security apparatus. So they said, hey, we got him. They were trying to sabotage us and we're going to set us up, but no, we came out the victor here. Is that really the case, though? That just doesn't sound good, does it? Now, according to the state-sanctioned account, the counterintelligence operation resulted in the 3 casualties who were plotting an attack on the regional energy infrastructure from a house. Now, the interesting thing here is that it said they were plotting this, but let's take a look at who they were in more detail. Moscow Times promptly claimed that it's identified 2 of the 3 deceased as airsoft players, who, while they were not sympathetic to Russia's government, were merely cosplayers who'd occasionally dress up as stalkers from the video game series. And when we continue to go on, we see that they are a part of the local airsoft community. And what I found from research here, from the article and from reading some of the comments, is that this game is very popular in the East, and people in the airsoft community often cosplay or dress as players, well, maybe not necessarily players, but in the style of this game. So they were in an area which is very much civil unrest right now, and just a really rough time here. Now, the devs halted a development of Stalker 2 in March, and they shared a video dev diary depicting some of its staffers fighting over in Ukraine. Now, this actually came, it says here, weeks after Remedy Entertainment revealed that Metro 1 Exodus developer died while fighting there as well. Now, I've checked out some comments, and we're going to look at them right now, and there's some interesting stuff here that we need to talk about. Drew H. Fox says, interesting choice of cosplay, considering one of the major Stalker factions is literally the Ukrainian military. Still sad, though. So the thing about that is when you're in a troublesome area like that, another comment that's coming up in a second really is controversial almost, but were they okay in doing what they did, going to that area dressed as they were? So you literally, in one of the Stalker games, play a Ukrainian security service agent or a spy. So when the connection is strong here, right? So they said that they were spies. They mistook him for that, allegedly. We don't know if that's true, false. Allegedly meaning supposedly, or according to this is what allegedly means. Now, what I find here is that the deceased drew attention of the FSB after the intelligence indicated they had the green wolf that I talked about earlier. Comment from Delta TM says, sure, spies always come in uniforms of the country they're spying for. Which makes sense. If they had these uniforms on and they were representing this country, if they were truly spies, would they be going out just open like this in those uniforms? You would think that they would be undercover, and not what you would think obviously would be. So it's interesting how these go. And there's definitely a comment that I want to find here. The first rule of airsoft is always warn authorities of your activities, and even so, you may still end up in problems with someone who wasn't part of the call. This makes sense if you are going to play a game that has guns, BB guns, airsoft, what have you. Well, you wouldn't do it with BB guns, you do it closer with paintball. You should let people know, hey, we are playing a game here, this is what's going on, and that way everybody knows and everybody is okay. Dressing as soldiers when your country is at war, the comment continues, almost as smart as that Russian teen who found a live grenade placed in his lap and pulled the pin thinking it would only explode after he tossed it, while talking to his friend who frantically asked him not to do that. The police found him later, his result gory as you imagine. Why would he even pull out that pin? Was he thinking about blowing something up? Just as if you have a firearm, you do not point it at someone unless you are aiming to take the shot. Now, this comment really stands out to me as interesting because, well, as we talked about earlier, they were going into the area in a very risky, dangerous state of civil affairs right now, and that was their dressing. Now, are they allowed to do that? Should they be able to do that? And it's interesting too because this comment almost sounds to me like when people say, oh, she shouldn't have worn that skirt if she didn't want to get catcalled or whistled at on the street. When, in the honest truth of things, you should have the self-control not to whistle or catcall, even if that is the case, right? So just because they thought they were spies, they were trying to play it safe and defend themselves maybe. But on the other hand, I'm a little bit skeptical of that, aren't you? And I know it's hard because there may be people from Russia watching this right now that say this is a travesty, this should not happen. And I agree with you. I'm not saying that everyone is bad. Of course not. These actions of a few do not dictate the many. This whole situation is terrible, and I hate what is going on for the people there. And I see the bleed into the video game world through this event right here. And that bleed is unfortunate that you can't take a game, you cannot cosplay as the people in that game. That is a big thing in the community for this airsoft over in the East, and you can't do that because of these issues that are happening. And I feel like that you should be able to if you wish, but in the current state of things, it's hard. And I just hate that everyone would be lumped into one thing when it's the actions of the few. Now, I'm not getting into politics, don't worry, but I'm keeping this as surface level as I can in a way as it relates to the gaming. And there's so many more comments here. Some of them I'm not going to read because, well, they're kind of inappropriate here. And this downvoted comment said it's a propaganda piece. They were not cosplaying at all. They're in civil clothing. They happen to have a stalker flag at home, unrelated to them dying. On the corresponding news videos, you see DIY explosives. Now, the thing is, there's actually another comment down below that said that this is one of the most popular things for LARPing or airsoft and cosplay. The game is known classic in Ukraine, Poland, and Russia, and a lot of Europe. Within the Stalker community, this article is known to be true. The people who were killed were well known within this community and had been cosplaying as this Freedom Faction members for a long time. So you have someone saying that this is fake, but others saying, hey, no, these members that have passed, they were well known in the community, in and out, so we will say this is a real article. And no matter where you're from in the world, it does not matter your stance. If you're a human, you will say that this is a horrible event that people had to pass this way, probably at much too young of an age to go. Leave me a comment below, let me know what you think, and check out the next video on your screen here. I'll check you later.